Welcome to Word of the Week. The National Homeless Conversation, hosted here in Cape Town by the National Homeless Network in the City of Cape Town, was a very special event, bringing different role players together who are seeking to address homelessness and to build partnerships and relationships of cooperation in tackling this huge and multifaceted challenge. My hope is in that, reflecting on some of the highlights that stood out for me and rooting them in scripture, it will help us bed them down in our DNA as U-Turn and in the ministry which God has called us into. In his opening words of welcome, the chair of the National Homeless Network, Dr. Raymond Perrier, who heads the Dennis Hurley Centre in Durban, spoke about the traditional Zulu greeting, Sawubona, which literally means, I see you. But more than words of politeness, Sawubona carries the importance of recognizing the worth and dignity of each person. It acknowledges the other person's presence and their inherent value. Raymond's message set the tone for the conversations over the next 2 days. With all the different strategies, programs and interventions discussed, we have to start from the fundamental position that we are dealing with people, not the homeless, but people. People who may happen to be homeless at this point, but people, each one made in the image of God, who is unique and valuable. That's expressed in our U-Turn statement of purpose, is it not? God made every person intrinsically valuable, and no one should have to sleep on the street. There are a number of references to Jesus looking at people, really looking and seeing beyond just the surface and first impressions. The one that comes to mind is the first one that happens in the Gospel of John, where Andrew is with John, supposedly, and has followed Jesus and spent the day with him. And we pick up at John chapter 1, verse 40. Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, was one of the two who heard what John the Baptist had said and who had followed Jesus. And the first thing that Andrew did was to find his brother Simon and tell him, "We have found the Messiah," that is, the Christ. And he brought him to Jesus. Jesus looked at him and said, "You are Simon, son of John. You will be called Cephas," which when translated is Peter. The Aramaic Cephas and the Greek Peter both mean rock. Now we know from reading the Gospels that there were times when Simon Peter was not a rock. In Matthew chapter 14, we read of how Peter boldly steps out of the boat and actually walks on water. But then he loses focus and becomes afraid of the wind and begins to sink. And Jesus rebukes him gently. "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" And then in chapter 16, just moments after Jesus names him the rock, Peter tries to stop Jesus from going to the cross. And Jesus responds with a much stronger rebuke. "Get behind me, Satan." But then, to cap it all, there is the incident in the courtyard of the high priest after Jesus had been arrested. An hour after he had twice denied that he knew Jesus, comes his third denial. And this is how Luke records it. About an hour later, another man asserted, "Certainly this fellow was with him, for he's a Galilean." Peter replied, "Man, I don't know what you're talking about." Just as he was speaking, the rooster crowed. The Lord turned and looked straight at Peter. Then Peter remembered the words the Lord had spoken to him. "Before the rooster crows today, you will disown me 3 times. And he went outside and wept bitterly. That look from Jesus was worse than all the previous rebukes put together. Not much of a rock, hey Peter? Not much of a rock. But then comes that restorative encounter at the lakeside after the resurrection, when Jesus asks Peter again 3 times, "Do you love me?" And he gives him the opportunity to say to him face to face, "Yes, Lord, I love you." In response to Jesus asking him the 3rd time, he understands, and I sense maybe for the first time, he understands just how deeply Jesus sees him and knows him. He says, "Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you." You know, the point is that Jesus saw Peter, and knowing his weaknesses, also saw and called out his strengths. He was, in fact, rightly called Cephas, Peter, the rock. He powerfully preached the first Christian sermon, and 3,000 people became believers. He had a healing ministry, and he even raises the dead. He exercised a powerful leadership role in the early church when they decided to replace Judas, and when they took the bold step of opening the church to Gentile believers. And at the Council of Jerusalem in Acts chapter 15, he was instrumental in shaping the early doctrine of salvation by grace and not by the law. And his letters, especially 1 Peter, became foundational texts encouraging perseverance, holiness, courage and hope as the church came under increasing persecution. He really was a rock that held the church together and allowed the church to expand and push through adversity and challenges. Jesus looked at Simon and he saw him. He saw who he really was. He saw what he could be. He saw what he could become and how God could use him. So, referring back to Raymond's opening message at the NHC, I can imagine Jesus looking at Simon and saying, "Sawubona, Peter, rock, I see you. I see what you are now. I see your impetuosity, I see your weaknesses, but I also see what you can be and will be, and what God can do in and through you. Sawubona, Peter, I see you." May we have the heart of Jesus as we greet people, clients and colleagues, and greet them with the eyes of Jesus, and in faith see what he can do in and through them. May that shape our interactions with everyone we meet in the week ahead. Sawubona, I see you.